Their room said, no, we're not losing her, and ordered everybody like a drill sergeant, according to my father, to continue with CPR. And what they had to do was continue it long enough for him to actually install temporary life support.
What is the first memory you have of, your otherworldly experience?
Yeah, it was pretty instantaneous for me. I remember 1 minute being in this world, and the next minute being like, I died. I knew immediately. I was in this white space where I felt like I was formless, and I felt light as a feather. I felt free. And I remember feeling really free of the burdens of everyday life.
Was there a feeling of panic at all? Like I've died. Oh my God, I've died.
It was more, wow, this is so beautiful.
Really?
Yeah.
You remember that?
Absolutely.
And was it one of those things where you were above the room? Like, where were you seeing?
It wasn't like an out of body experience. I literally was in a whole other realm. So I was no longer in the physical hospital room. I was completely in another realm. I actually felt connected to my family on the other side, and I felt connected to the heavens. So there was no distinction of, okay, I'm dead and I'm in this other world. It was more, I just gracefully walked through this door and made this beautiful transition into another realm.
So there's much more to her experience and what happened in those moments, including an illumination on the life she had lived thus far. We're going to pick it up there when we come back. I'm back now with Sherry Ame, who says she had a life-changing near-death experience during cardiac arrest when she was dead for 90 minutes. So Sherry, I know you said that in the moment, it felt like you did a life review. What does that mean?
Yeah, it's funny because it actually wasn't just a life review of my current life. It was actually a life review of any experience my soul had ever undergone. So, which is so crazy. It was so crazy to me.
Did you believe in past lives prior to that moment?
It's funny because it actually wasn't just a life review of my current life. It was actually a life review of any experience my soul had ever undergone. So, which is so crazy. It was so crazy to me.
Did you believe in past lives prior to that moment?
I didn't think anything. I really didn't even know what a near-death experience was until I got back. So this was all very foreign to me. I had heard maybe of people that had had an out-of-body experience. I did not know what this meant. So yeah, I mean, this was definitely very, very foreign for me.
And do you feel like you got a window into prior lives?
Absolutely. I mean, the biggest thing that I really learned was sometimes we all have like this common reoccurring theme that's happening in our lives, whether it's, poor finances or relationship trouble. I got to learn during my lifetime reviews what that common theme was and actually how to clear it.
Wow.
Because what it happened was it was attaching to my soul during every lifetime.
I'm sorry, but I believe that. I feel like that's part of karma, and that you keep getting the chance to get it right. Yes. And eventually, hopefully you do, and you move on to the next plane.
Yes.
But I really think there's something to that.
Yeah.
The notion of being dead but not dead is confusing to people. And we have a doctor here. His name is Dr. Sam Parnia, a world expert on the science of death and the author of Erasing Death, which sounds like a great idea, Doc.
Of course.
Thank you for being here. So
Pleasure.
how could she be dead but not dead for 90 minutes?
Well, it's a very good question, of course. The reality is that we all have a perception of death. And this goes back millennia, which is essentially that death is a moment. There's a time when you're either alive or you're dead. And the reason we think that is because when the heart stops, you have no more blood flowing into your brain, into your other organs. The brain shuts down immediately. A person becomes lifeless, motionless, and they are dead. Or even if you go back to the French Revolution, if somebody had lost their head, there's no more blood getting into the brain and it shuts. However, what's amazing is that about 50, 60 years ago, we discovered CPR, and we found that actually you can artificially restart the heart or produce a circulation, get blood flowing around the body even after a person has died. And that made our definitions more ambiguous. And what is now even more interesting is that we understand that it's only after a person has died, which makes perfect sense, that the cells inside the body start to undergo their own process of death. So when somebody's heart stops, it's only then that the cells will start to die. And that process takes many hours, possibly days.
How has your outlook on death and life changed as a result of this experience?
I am definitely no longer afraid of death. And that was something that I had feared my entire life.
Yeah.
And what I learned is that fear of death really prevents you from truly living. And so if you were to know me prior to my near-death experience and now, it's like I'm two completely different people, because I lived pre-near death. I lived my life very, all my decisions were like based around fear of what other people thought, fear of what other people would say, fear of not being good enough, or fear of being unworthy. Even though I was successful in my earlier years, every decision was still based upon that. Now I flipped the script. I'm doing everything different.
I love that. I completely believe in that. I think if you're making decisions out of fear in general, you're making them out of the wrong place. I'm so glad you're well. You got your new heart.
Yes.
You look amazing. And thank you for telling your story to us. Wow. We'll be right back.
Hello, Today fans. Thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking that button down there and click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives.
I want to make sure there's plenty of time for questions because the topics are obviously very controversial and very interesting, I think. And I'm sure there'll be lots of questions, lots of disagreement. So I want to make sure there's plenty of time. So Joe will give me the timeout if I go too long. And I really want to give you time to ask questions, and I'll hang out here as well. I'll stay afterwards, and you can ask me questions. All right, so I will be reading at least parts of this paper. The problem is if I don't read, then I'm not that disciplined, and I will digress too much. And there is a handout, so I hope that will be helpful. I start by referring to a book that I wrote with Ben Mitchell-Yellen, Near-Death Experiences, Understanding Visions of the Afterlife. And that's more detailed in terms of some of the arguments that I'll just skip over in this talk, but I'll tell you when I get to a place where you might want to look at that book. Then I have a new book coming out in June of this year that you might be interested in. And then there is a YouTube video of a lecture I gave on near-death experiences at UC Riverside, but it's a different lecture. You might have fun with it. Okay. Near-death experiences, well, maybe I can go ahead. Near-death experiences, NDEs, take place in near-death contexts, situations in which an individual's life is in jeopardy. I've always thought maybe it should be situations in which the
This holiday, get the 5G America's been waiting for.
We're so glad you hang with us through the show, but this story for sure, a Texas teenager sharing a deeply personal story tonight of dying, seeing Jesus.
Hey guys, now this is another video request. Some of you asked me, hey Daniel, what exactly happens to us when we die? And this is a very important question because we will all die someday. In fact, there are 150,000 people that die every single day. One
Where does the soul go to when we die? Death. But it makes you understand that when the soul moves on, it didn't go anywhere. It may be right here, except it's not being contained in a container that we can see.
Good grammar and spelling are important, but if you want to write essays that inspire, messages that forge brighter connections, and emails that get the job done, you need to think about more than just grammar and spelling. This sentence is grammatically correct, but it's wordy and hard to read. It undermines the writer's message and the word.
The Higgs boson was a great discovery. The Higgs boson is a very special particle, very different from the other elementary particles that have been discovered before. Its role is special. It has the role of giving mass to the other elementary particles and so enable the fundamental constituents of atoms to stick together, because if the constituents of atoms, the electrons and the quarks, do not have a mass, atoms will not stick together. So the Higgs boson is a very special particle. Of course, it would have been very, very nice to discover other particles. But the fact that we have not yet discovered them, I'm saying yet because the Large Hadron Collider has only delivered, say, less than 10% of the ultimate amount of data, doesn't mean that this is a negative thing. On the contrary, in physics, in science, in research, first of all, measurements of known particles and of known quantities are of primary importance to make step forward, but also being able to eliminate possible theories or show the way to move forward. And this is made through discovery, but also through showing that some particles that were expected are actually not there. The Large Hadron Collider at the moment is in shutdown for 2 years, 2019 and 2020. We have this shutdown period regularly to perform maintenance and upgrade of the collider. At the moment, we are upgrading some components of the accelerator chain to be able to start data taking and operation again in 2021 with more intense proton beams, and so to be able to produce more collisions, and therefore to have larger opportunities of measuring known particles and also looking for rare phenomena. At the moment, CERN is studying a future collider, a post-LHC Collider. We are in a phase of design studies and R&D of the accelerator components, and we have two different projects on the table. One is a linear collider, smashing electrons and positrons of a length between 11 and 50 kilometers, depending on the energy and increasing with time. And the other one is what we call future circular collider, a 100-kilometer ring, so 3 times bigger than the Large Hadron Collider. Both projects that are not yet approved are very important to push our understanding of the Higgs boson, first of all. The Higgs boson is still largely a very mysterious particle and is in some way related to some open questions, outstanding questions in our understanding of fundamental physics, related, for instance, to the fate of our universe. Is our universe stable or metastable? If it's metastable, one day it will collapse. So it's very important to get to know the Higgs boson much, much better than we know it today. But also, with these newer accelerators and colliders, we are going to also to address outstanding questions in particle physics. Dark matter is still a question mark. We don't know 25% of the matter that of which the universe is made. Understanding where the antimatter disappear, some point in the history of the universe, matter, antimatter, that were before in similar quantities, nature at some point decided to favor matter over antimatter. Thanks goodness, otherwise we will not be here. But still, we don't understand why and how. So these instruments will allow us to make a gigantic first step forward in our understanding of fundamental physics and the universe. They are expensive, but they're not going to be paid in a few weeks. The cost and the payment will be extended over decades. We're talking about decades. There is big international competition for hosting the next big collider after the LHC. Japan is thinking of a linear collider, and China is thinking of a 100-kilometer ring, like the future circular collider. This testifies to the importance of fundamental physics, because if Japan and China are interested in doing this big, in building this big accelerator, it means that the science is interesting and the technology that they will allow develop are interesting. Why do we want to have such a big collider at CERN, so in Europe? That's simply because with CERN, Europe, over the past 60 years, was able to bring back the leadership in fundamental physics from the US and other places in the world back to Europe. CERN was founded in the aftermath of World War II with the goal, on one end, to bring back scientific excellence and leadership after the war, where many scientists had migrated out of Europe, and then, of course, to foster peaceful collaboration across, through science. Over the past decades, CERN has gained this leadership and has the ownership of the technologies, the cutting-edge technologies that such big colliders requires. And we have the technologies, we have the leadership. It would be a pity to lose it to some other regions of the world.
I'm Rex Moore with the Motley Fool, and there's a reason I come to CES every